Hi everyone, and welcome to our second in a series of Smiley Monroe Webinars. My name is Georgia and I'll be your host today. Today's webinar is all about belt selection and helping you choose the right belt for your application. So before we take a deep dive into all things conveyor belts, I would like to go through some quick house rules. Firstly, there will be a Q&A session at the end of today's webinar, so please submit any questions you have into the conversation chat on the right hand side. Secondly, I would like you to make sure that your mics are muted. And finally, this webinar will be recorded and we'll provide a link to the recording after today's session. So what exactly are you going to learn today? Firstly, you'll learn how to select the right conveyor belt for your application. Secondly, you'll learn how to choose the right chevron pattern for your conveyor belt. And finally, you'll understand the differences between ToughFlex belts, Ripstop belts, and fabric breaker belts. So you may be wondering who's presenting this webinar, and we couldn't think of anybody better than our very own Alicia McCann and Ryan Wright. So first up is Alicia. Alicia is blazing a trail in our mobile equipment world since taking on the role of Europe sales manager. Catching up with customers and solving problems along the way is all in a day's work for Alicia. So now's your chance to ask Alicia everything you've always wanted to know about conveyor belts, but were too afraid to ask. Next up is Ryan. Ryan will be well known to our Northern Ireland customers, having spent a few years managing our home market before taking on his current role as international sales manager. Ryan, or Mr. Worldwide as we call him, spends his time virtually staying close to our customers. So why not put Ryan's knowledge to the test during our live Q&A session later on today? So Ryan, please take it away.
Thanks, Georgia. So this slide covers the majority of which sectors we supply conveyor belts to. Firstly, we have construction and demolition, recycling and waste management, quarrying, mining, washing systems, agricultural, environmental, port handling equipment, road construction, and conveyor fabricators. Each have subtle differences. For example, a belt for recycling and waste management will be somewhat oil resistant due to the material being handled, where a washing system just need a regular conveyor belt. We will go into more detail during the webinar to let you know which belts are more appropriate for each sector. Now I will hand you over to Alicia, who will talk you through different types of belts we manufacture.
Thanks, Ryan. Smiley Monroe produce enough belts each year to reach from London to Paris. We have an in-house quality lab to test our belting to ensure it is fit for purpose. Our UK operations are powered by 100% renewable energy, and in 2020 we achieved a zero waste to landfill. We have the capabilities to manufacture endless belts, ready to splice belts, cut length and Zipclip belts. So I'm just going to take a minute to talk through the different belt types. Endless belts are the most common belts produced in our factories in Lisburn, Huzzur and Kentucky. These belts are a finished length of conveyor belt with a hot vulcanized splice, forming a continuous loop which is ready to be fitted to your machine. Endless belts are most commonly used by original equipment manufacturers when machines are being manufactured, as a belt loop can easily be fitted onto the conveyor during assembly. Our ready to splice strip belts are a measured length of conveyor belt with overlapping stripped ends, ready for hot or cold splicing in your factory or on site. These belts are used most commonly when a belt is being replaced and the exact endless length of the conveyor is known, as it means we can pre-prepare the ends in our factory for the vulcanizer, therefore saving time and money. Cut length belts are a length of conveyor belt with square ends that include a length allowance for splicing. Cut length belts are used when replacing belts on site when the exact endless length is unknown and therefore ends need to be prepared on site. Finally, we have both our push-in and screw-in Zipclip belts, which Ryan will discuss in further detail towards the end. But for now, I'll hand back over to Ryan to discuss the anatomy of conveyor belts.
Thanks, Alicia. So this slide shows the cross-section of a conveyor belt. First, we have the top rubber cover. Next, we have the carcass. And then at the bottom is the bottom rubber cover. The function of the carcass is to transmit and absorb the forces acting on the belt. Secondly, the carcass absorbs the impact that partly appears when the material is loaded onto the conveyor and partly when the material passes over the carrying rollers. The carcass consists of one or more plies of textile fabric with rubber on each side to give adhesion and flexibility. The longitudinal direction is called warp and the cross direction is called weft. The conveyor belt fabrics can have the same or different material in warp and weft. one letter designating each. For instance, EP, which is E in polyester, and warp is P in the weft, polyamide in the weft. EP multiply combination gives the best possible fabric characteristics with the following advantages: high strength in proportion to weight, high resistance to impact, negligible elongation, great flexibility, excellent troughability, and it's not susceptible to humidity or any microorganisms. EPP, or straight warp, which we branded ToughFlex. Alicia's going to go into more details on that later. So these technical advantages, as well as many years' experience in the conveyor belt field, are the reason why Smiley Monroe prefer EP as carcass material in the standard conveyor belts. The covers protect the carcass and give the necessary friction between the belt and drive pulley and between the belt and the material. The belt top covers can become damaged due to wear, impact, the carried material, or external environmental conditions. It is therefore important to choose the correct conveyor belt for your application. This slide demonstrates how you will see belts described on quotes, etc. So firstly, we'll have the metric belt width described in millimeters. Where the belt is described in imperial measurements, the closest metric width will be selected. For example, 24-inch will be 600 millimeters. The fabric type in EP, which consists of E polyester and P polyamide, combined to give strength, impact resistance, flexibility, and negligible elongation. Next is the overall tensile strength. Rated breaking strength is 10 times the calculated working tension. The total strength is the total number of plies multiplied by the tensile strength of each ply. For example, an 805 is a 5-ply belt, and that's 5 times 160 Newton millimeters per ply. The next part is the number of synthetic fabric plies used to make up the total tensile strength. Note that more plies do not necessarily mean the belt is stronger. For example, a 504, which is a 4-ply belt, is the same strength as a 503, a 3-ply belt. The next part is the top and bottom cover thickness in millimeters. And finally, all our belts are produced to the European manufacturing standard DIN 22102. This is the equivalent description for US customers. So you'll see the width in inches, the PIW rating, which is the strength, the number of plies, and the top and bottom cover thicknesses in inches. Now I will hand you over to Alicia, who is going to discuss high specification belts.
So further to the multi-ply standard belts Ryan has just discussed, Smiley Monroe also stock various high specification conveyor belts, namely fabric breaker, Ripstop, and ToughFlex belting. Our fabric breaker belting is constructed with EP fabric plies and an additional fabric breaker ply with a heavy duty top cover to provide more shock absorption to protect the carcass. It is recommended for carrying large lumps and abrasive materials where there is not a high risk of rip and puncture. Fabric breaker belting is often used on cone crusher collection belts and primary screed feed conveyors and hoppers. Next, our Ripstop belting consists of steel wires, which is used as an extra ply in the carcass of the belt in order to protect the EP fabrics from longitudinal cuts, while the ability for trough formation is maintained. The reinforced steel wire mesh creates excellent rip and puncture resistance and offers longer lifespan. It is suitable for machines with overband magnets but not metal detectors, and is widely used in construction and demolition industries and often used for crusher collection belts. ToughFlex is our all-round conveyor belt hero. It is designed to handle the toughest conveying applications, and it's constructed with a special weave of 2 fabric plies and an additional binder warp. The plies are reinforced to resist puncturing and are protected with heavy-duty wear-resistant top and bottom covers. It offers optimum cut, impact and gouge resistance against the sharpest materials, as well as optimum wear resistance for the most abrasive materials. It performs well on small to medium-sized pulleys, has excellent troughability, and offers a longer lifespan, making it a perfect all-round solution for extreme conveying. All these factors ensure maximum uptime due to the longer life ToughFlex offers, outlasting any multi-ply belt. ToughFlex belting is very diverse and is often used in crushing and screening, recycling and demolition, environmental and bulk material handling industries, and it's also highly recommended for use in impact crusher applications. So from the table, you can see that ToughFlex performs excellent across the board in terms of wear, impact, rip, puncture and cut resistance, as well as suitability for small pulleys and troughability. It should also be noted that Ripstop belting cannot be recycled, whereas ToughFlex can. So now back to Ryan to chat about the Chevron belting we can offer.
Thanks, Alicia. Flat conveyor belts with a smooth carrying surface are useful for conveying of packed and unpacked material up to an angle of inclination of 22 degrees as the upper limit. Chevron conveyor belts are the right belts to meet the requirements when higher angles of inclination are required. Chevron conveyor belts have rubber profiles that are integrally vulcanized with the top cover of the belt. These profiles are made with highly abrasion-resistant rubber types. The profiles are shaped in such a manner that there is no need for special idlers, and these can be run on conventional conveyors. The pitch and design of the Chevron pattern ensures a smooth ride over the flat return rollers. This is a multi-cleated V6 and is typically used in the environmental sector where biomass is recycled. Our American customers will recognize this as a standard cleated Chevron belt. This pattern is more of a specialist type. This one in particular is used in road construction, specifically road planing or milling. You will see that the pattern does not have any brakes where return carrying rollers can catch and cause vibration. This makes this belt great for high speed. The next pattern is typically used in the mobile crushing and screening sector, specifically side belts on screens, which take undersized product away to be stockpiled at the side of the machine. The last example we have is more of a specialist application and is used in recycle or return conveyors, which usually have short, steep incline, and the side rails help to stop material spilling over the edges. So what are the main factors affecting belt specification? You need to look at things like the material characteristics, the lump size, the conveyor capacity, the belt speed, the motor size, and the angle of inclination. And now Alicia's going to discuss specialized conveyor belting with you.
Thanks, Ryan. Smiley Monroe can also supply specialised conveyor belting, such as heat, cold and frost, oil and flame resistant belts. Standard belts will crack or delaminate much beyond 70 degrees Celsius or 158 degrees Fahrenheit. High temperature belting increases belt life through special fabrics and compounds available for extreme temperature applications. This type of belt is used to convey clinker, coke, foundry sand, ore and slag, or any material above 70 degrees Celsius or 158 degrees Fahrenheit, and it can be combined with oil, acid or flame resistance. Cold resistant belts are manufactured to dinar and are suitable for minus 30 degrees Celsius or minus 22 degrees Fahrenheit. It is extremely important to use cold resistant belts in these temperatures, as otherwise the belt will freeze and become difficult to track and trough. Low temperatures can do serious damage to the actual conveyor belt carcass itself. Choosing the correct thickness of the cover is essential because the cover acts as a barrier between the cold source and the carcass. Next, flame resistant belting is used in applications where the risk to fire needs to be carefully controlled. Underground mining, fuel handling and fertilizer plants often use flame resistant belting. The belting is tested by demonstrating that it can self-extinguish after being set on fire, and a drum friction test is also used to check the belt will not initiate a fire when it is stalled against a rotating drum. And finally, oil resistant belting is designed to resist swelling and delamination in oily environments. Standard belts will absorb the oil and curl up at the edge and become difficult to track. It is often used to convey waste, grain, fertilizer and wood chip. So finally, Ryan will briefly discuss Zipclip belts, which we covered in greater detail in our last webinar.
Thanks, Alicia. Zipclip is our mechanically fastened replacement conveyor belt. With an easy to fit push-in or screw-in connecting pin, Zipclip belts are fast, safe and secure installation method, which we developed specifically for the OEM aftermarket. Each belt comes complete with its own set of fitting instructions and everything else you need to fit. This can be kept as a replacement belt next to your most critical conveyor or machine within a remote location where it would be impossible for a vulcanizing team to attend in the event of a breakdown. Once fitted and tensioned, Zipclip belts can be run immediately. Even environmental conditions such as high humidity, dust, sand, or extreme cold will not adversely affect installation. Zipclip is available as both push-in and screw-in pin options. So why would you choose a Zipclip belt? The belt can be run immediately, maximizing uptime. Zipclip's factory-made recessed splice is friendly towards polyurethane belt cleaners and feed boot skirt rubber. Corrosion and wear-resistant stainless chromium steel staples and stainless chromium nickel armored connecting pin designed for maximum wear resistance. Factory manufactured using hydraulic equipment ensures consistently high quality splice for longer life and superior splice strength and belt straightness compared to hammer and rivet hinge fasteners. There are over 2,500 Zipclip belts in operation around the world. And a couple of years ago, we conducted a case study on a local limestone quarry producing 1,600 tons of material a day. On this site, a breakdown can often mean 2 days of machine downtime whilst waiting on a vulcanizing crew and replacement conveyor belt. Having a Zipclip belt in stock resulted in saving over $31,000, which was lost material production for those 2 days and the added cost of getting a vulcanizing crew on site. And some of the applications where Zipclip can be used include mobile crushing and screening, recycling and demolition, washing, environmental, bulk material handling, road construction, and screening.
So for initial inquiries, customers should contact Smiley Monroe by email at hello@smileymonroe.com, and one of the people shown here will then be in touch and